Hey all, I'm back. So this is the second part of my little, I don't know, rant or diatribe is being a bit much. My little discussion with you all, my thoughts on some of the topics explored by Metal Mickey of the now deleted, at least temporarily, Metal Mickey channel, and the discourse between him and Melanie Loves Death Metal. I talk about the more, for lack of a better term, drama elements in my previous upload, which I'll leave a link to here or here, one of the two, both maybe. That I kind of got into the personal headbutting and conflicts and the aspects of the vinyl community socially and stuff. In this second half, I tried to steer it more towards how this discussion's kind of affected me personally, and coincidentally, a lot of elements of collecting that have kind of coincided with all this coming about. Thoughts and reflections that I've had on my own collecting habits and my own consumption and where I am in my life, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's where this goes from. There's not really a solid, seamless, good transition from the last video. So it's more of just like jumping right in, where I'm kind of talking about a very popular topic in metal culture and stuff, namely like gatekeeping and that sort of thing. I mean, I know that discussion's kind of been driven into the ground, but I mean, you can't really talk about this sort of stuff without at least touching upon it. So that's kind of where I'm jumping from. So it's a little awkward sliding right into that, and then me, giving my own thoughts about just everything that revolves around doing this as a hobby. So I hope you enjoy it. And after this, I'll be back to, doing what I do and talking about music. So that'll be nice to return to that. All right. Thanks to everybody for watching this stuff. As always, appreciate you. I get the whole negativity and gatekeeping brings the eyeballs, and I understand that that's kind of a key element of the metal scene. And there's a lot of things I like about the metal scene. The sense of like brother and sisterhood, not scrutinizing everything social or political constantly the way hardcore does. This kind of escapism of metal I like. But on the same token, this sort of like taking shit seriously that I have no idea why. I think Mickey saying that the whole pre-orders aren't metal thing is a good example of that. I mean, first of all, they are, whether you like it or not. They may not be metal in the way that the Manowar guy wearing a loincloth holding a hammer up to the heavens or whatever is metal, but I mean, it's a fact that it's something that happens even with smaller labels. It's just a big part of it. Calling out this or that or the other, like all of this stuff, this whole conversation around vinyl variants and all this kind of stuff, this has been keeping metal alive. Like I hate to break it to you, sometimes it seems pretty gross and commercial to me too. There's several of Mickey's points that I strongly agreed with, but since everything is moved to first downloading, now streaming, like record labels got to do what they can to keep the lights on and not even really pay their bands on more underground labels. I'd like be able to give their bands merch to sell so they can fill their gas tanks. Like, I don't think there's too many career bands as far as new bands in the death metal underground, maybe there's a handful that get by, but like it doesn't go by record sales anymore. So all these like trinkets and all this merch, like that kind of keeps things running. Like, I think that's a bad byproduct and maybe a good argument as to why like capitalism is gross. Like it or not, that's just the way things are. We're operating under capitalism here. There was somebody that even quoted Slavoj Žižek, if I'm saying that right, in one of Mickey's comments, and I was really surprised. But it's just like, and I'm not even necessarily saying I'm 100% anti-capitalist either. I'm still trying to figure all that stuff out. I'm probably not the commie you think I am. But the fact of the matter is it's a supply and demand thing. And I don't think all those Megadeth variants are necessary. He definitely had a point there. I get that it's part of the conversation to criticize these things and to purity test. I understand that part of the whole metal vanguard thing is to make sure that there's like clearly defined borders somewhere. I feel that the gatekeeping and the snobbery that used to be present in metal, like as it was still evolving into, and it still is very, very, very slowly. It's very minute movements now, but I'm talking about like the jumps from thrash to death metal and then black metal coming along in the 90s and everything. All of those were the product of gatekeeping, and it has its place in metal, but as opposed to younger kids saying that's cheesy now, that's not extreme enough, it needs to be faster, needs to be more blasphemous, whatever. Now it seems to be bitter older men, primarily, some women too, sure, saying that like this isn't true enough, this isn't how it is, I don't like that guy's haircut, that dude's wearing jean shorts, whatever. Like the whole people freaking out over Tomb Mold and Blood Incantation a few years ago. I'm not even a big fan of either of those bands that much, but I still feel like a lot of it just seems like, old man yelling at cloud, sour grapes kind of thing. Who's the guy from 60 Minutes? Is it Andy Rooney, Mickey Rooney? What grinds my gears? That kind of thing. It's just, I don't know. That sort of like constant calling out of like perceived posers and everything. I not disputing that it doesn't have its place, but it just doesn't do anything for me. I do not care. There's probably plenty of people that don't think I'm appropriately metal enough. Like I am a 47-year-old man. Like I have my aesthetics, I have my fashion, I have the stuff I enjoy, but I'm not into labels. Like that's absolutely fine. I am just as much a retired hardcore kid as I am a video game enthusiast. First and foremost, I'm a father and a family man. I'm a family man! And a husband, It's cool, like, having subcultures and having a place to belong and having like-minded people. But I could really personally give a shit less about, like, what anybody considers as valid or not. However, to steer back around, I am definitely just kind of babbling. I've had a few dead moments that I'm going to have to edit out here. This is why I'm not fit to be a live streamer. But to say what I got from this is, it is true that a lot of us here that make videos, that do record collecting content on YouTube within metal, and there's a whole VC community outside of metal, of course. It does make me kind of want to take a step back and look at my own life and look at my own consumption and things like that. I think everybody had the wrench thrown in the gears of their life about 5 years ago when COVID happened. I think that was, I don't think it was easy for anybody. I'm a healthcare professional. I do imaging. Like, I look at people's lungs for a living. So COVID was particularly scary for me, and everybody had their time of coping with it. I think if you had any sort of like addictive elements to your personality that were helping you get the happy juice, the serotonin or whatever flowing in your brain to make things a bit simpler, like you kind of may have like really overindulged no matter what it is. I've had some friends that went through rehab since then. I think people's addiction issues got really gnarly. People self-medicated, that kind of thing. I wasn't great with that, but I was okay. And I'm very into being healthy now. More so, I think, like, just the whole purchasing, the whole like buying up for your feelings, like eating your feelings, purchasing your feelings, Amazon priming your feelings. I don't know. I got used to getting tons of shit in the mail every week, and a couple of things happened. Namely, I'm getting older. I've moved 3 times in the past 4 years myself, and that's just more and more stuff. Well, I won't bore you right now, but I'm going to do a tour. Everybody knows I own a ton of stuff, but at a certain point, you do start to, when you're staring into the abyss of your own mortality, one does kind of go, what is the point of all this? I am fully aware that a lot of this stuff on my shelves, like, I'll probably never listen to again. I think this has been discussed ad nauseum. That's kind of the point, not the point of being a collector. It's like, this is important. I want to have it in my possession at any time to pull it from the shelf and listen to if I so choose, if I ever get caught up with this backlog. And I think that's part of the problem. And I think on top of that, the symbiotic relationship between collecting and owning a collector's channel is a phenomenon unto itself as well. I've seen a lot of creators, not just in this space, but particularly a bunch in the retro gaming collecting community, which is like a secondary passion of mine at this stage, talk about it. I can't remember the creator's name. He's actually pretty good. But there's a retro gaming guy. I think it's like Midwest Retro Game Collector or something. Not a lot of these channels have super creative names, but at any rate, he talks a lot about the whole addiction issue. And it's interesting that this whole drama thing came about right around the time that I decided to take a month off from buying any physical media, music-wise, online. I just decided for myself that it's just getting dumb at this point. I mean, fair enough, like, I have been buying less over the past year or two. Not that that's saying too much, It doesn't help that I spent around 3 years living near, like, just a 20-minute drive away from one of the sickest record stores I've ever set foot in, which is Sorry State. So that didn't help because I was doing the brick and mortar thing like once or twice a month and still ordering like crazy. But there's a certain point that somebody gets to in their life where you got to go, well, what is all this for? And I kind of had a few revelations as a collector. To Mickey's point, I don't get the thing with buying more than one copy of a record. Getting multiple colors and stuff like that and variants. I don't understand that. I think it's brought up, like, it seemed to be, people came to the conclusion that Melanie doesn't really do that either. But I've never been one for that. There's one record that I did with that, and that was the Left 4 Dead Acrid split that's shaped like a buzzsaw. Because it's shaped like a friggin' buzzsaw. Like, that rules. And also, that record, as sick as it is, like, was pretty cheap. And when I was starting up my distro, which is still in cryo sleep now, I sold most of my copies of it. I know I sold Rick from the Dreadful Minutes one, and I had like 7 or 8 different colors of it, and I sold most of them. That's the one. And then multiple formats. I've been guilty of that, but it's never really intentional. Like, I usually have been like, oh, I have World Downfall by Terrorizer on vinyl. Oh, what the hell? Earache's having a sale. I'm getting some other stuff on it, and I get that on CD. Oh, there's a eBay lot that has it on cassette as well. So I have like this weird pantheon of like maybe 9 or 10 releases that are like, I call it the 3 format club, and it's all stuff that I've like worshipped for decades at this point. Like the first Accused record, Return of Martha Splatterhead, Terrorizer World Downfall. I was going to say Forest of Equilibrium. I actually only own that on LP and CD. I don't have that on cassette. I got to pick that up on cassette. Just kidding. I'm fine. But my point is, I don't understand that, but I will say, and I think it was brought up at some point, I think by Mickey maybe, and it's a fair thing to think about, is that how much are you buying stuff to talk about on your channel? I don't really do that. First of all, like, I didn't make content for 6 months. I still bought plenty of stuff, but maybe I think that sort of like knee jerk, and it's so easy with smartphones. I think that's the insidious thing about it, especially with Amazon, is that you click a button and something, it depends on what, not all of it, but if you're curious about something, reissues, and it's particularly easy with metal, a lot of this stuff is just a click away. Buy it, Amazon Prime, buy it now. It's at your house, like, within a day or two. I think that sort of instinct to just keep buying stuff, even though I wasn't making content, was still there. And also, I think the whole amassing tons and tons of stuff I don't know how young people are with this. Like, I'm trying to think of an example of somebody that's not like 9,000 years old in the VC. Devin from Maze of Torment. I'd be curious about him and any kind of younger collectors, because I think what put it in my brain, and I know I've talked to a few different people about this that are around the same age, turn of the century, early 2000s, first it was Napster, which I never used. Then it was LimeWire, and then now it's SoulSeek is still around. But SoulSeek was kind of like where it evened out and it got to be like you're not getting viruses usually or anything. And there was also, of course, the Blogspot era of MP3s. We, as music maniacs, dedicated nut jobs that are into music, got so used to just being able to go and getting like 100 albums in one go in an evening. And I think things changed a little bit. I don't know how. It's interesting to think about how people perceive music now with streaming. It's weird because I talk about stuff like this with normies and coworkers, and people that I talk to will be like, "Oh, did we listen to a whole album? Wow, what a novel idea!" Like younger people at work, or I'm playing like a Smiths record or something that's palatable to people around me, and I'm like, "Yeah," But I think for those of us that were around for the downloading thing, it was a dream come true. I had so many artists that I wanted to find that I couldn't get in my environment. All this like crazy early earache stuff, bands like Heresy, bands like Infest, all this stuff that was like really like rarer New York hardcore stuff from like the early 80s, starting to get into Japanese stuff. Like all of it was available like this at the snap of a finger. And I think once you get used to that, once you have money, once you get a real job later and you have disposable income and all this at your fingertips, it's weird because it's almost the same reckless abandon, except it's taking up your money and it's taking up space. And I couldn't stop thinking about that piece of it, how I'm shelling out bucks and acquiring stuff at a manic pace. And I have my own rituals. I listen to vinyl a certain number of hours a week, usually while I'm editing, or filing stuff, ironically. Occasionally I have 2 record players in the house now. There's one downstairs in this little family room thing I set up. So occasionally down there, I was putting together Legos with my son. We were listening to High on Fire while I was putting together Legos with my kid. Real wholesome. Matt Pike, wholesome.
I'm a family man.
Or whatever. I listen to records whenever, and then at work or when I'm driving, CDs I rip and put into a cloud and have a player that streams on my phone. And that's what I do instead of using Spotify or having any kind of streaming service. Once in a while, since I have YouTube, it used to be YouTube Red. I have YouTube Music. YouTube Premium, YouTube Music comes with it. I'll occasionally use that for checking stuff out or stuff on vinyl that I don't have in my cloud or whatever. But most of the time it's stuff that I physically own, and it's been a thing for me. I'm very much a creature of habit in a lot of ways, and it's get a bunch of CDs in a week, rip them to the cloud, spin them, take some mental notes about what I want to talk to on the channel. And at a certain point I was like, dude, why don't you take a load off for a while? Think about what you're doing. So I had to take a step away because at a certain point, and I'd wanted to numerous times, and I don't know why, but I'm just not having any trouble with it this time. Last month, it was a whole focus because I'm trying to always better myself. And I think that's a big takeaway from all this, is that everybody should always try to be the best person that you can be. That's my philosophy with things. So the past couple of months, I've been going back to the gym. I've been trying to eat right. I've cut way down on alcohol, almost like getting rid of it entirely. Last month was like you're not going to touch alcohol, and you're going to eat right, and you're going to go to the gym 3 or 4 days a week. That was a success. This month is all of the above, plus no spending money on physical media because I don't need to. It's time to actually chill with what I've got. You know what I mean? And eventually I'm going to be hopefully cutting my hours down at work just to be, again, like have more time for family related stuff, and also just enjoy all this stuff that I've accumulated. I'm a healthy person. You know, I think I look pretty good for somebody my age, but you've only got so many years on the planet and you don't know what's going to happen, you know? So to me, it's like, okay, for about 10 years, I've been really enjoying just pursuing all this stuff and bringing it into my life, and I'm trying to think of what the best word for this is. Whatever. I've been accumulating and archiving lots of the stuff that I love and exploring a lot of new music. But it's finally at the point where I just need to sit down and just kind of enjoy it and just chill. Not to say that I won't buy more stuff. And I have, once this month I've committed to is up, there's like 3 things that I really want. But I don't really perceive me going into it like crazy like I used to. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think everybody at some point that does this is... My meandering is getting to this point here. I'll put it this way. I think that everybody that does this, everybody that collects, really does need to take a step back from once in a while and just consider whether it's enriching your quality of life or if it's starting to become a little bit of a hindrance, you know? Because there is a pathological side to all this, the whole collector scum thing. And I think we all need to really look at that. And honestly, I think the overconsumption sort of stuff is by and large part of just being kind of trapped in modern life, trapped in this system. You know, it's like the Subhuman song says, work, rest, play, die. You know, we all need to work, most of us at least. Like, there's not too many of us that are independently wealthy, that's for sure. I don't think there's any in the VC, that's for certain. And a lot of it, I think, is, you know, you dedicate at least 40 hours a week to a full-time job. And you say to yourself, or at least I have, okay, well, I work a ton, you know, this is going to take the edge off of the fact that, you know, sometimes I don't like my job or whatever. I pick up the phone, I open the app, I open the metal detector search thing or whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah is having a sale. I hit buy and the little brain juices go and I feel good and I earned that because I worked. And I think also it's kind of reclaiming like lost childhood kind of thing.
You can't continue to be 11 years old for the rest of your fucking life.
No, that's the point of what our generation has become, is people that just want to be kids.
And it's not just marketing, it's also, you know, the school system and, you know, people fucking telling their children that they could be president before they knew the fucking alphabet in kindergarten. And it does create a sense of entitlement. And I think that does create a lot of like problems with like cultural narcissism.
The concept that everyone's special.
Yeah, yeah.
But what does that have to do with the whole like
and
obsession with 90s and nostalgia and all that stuff?
Because you created an inverse system where the best time in someone's life is between the ages of 5 and 15.
Yeah, it's true.
I agree with that thing in terms of peaking in middle school because it was a fucking simpler ass time.
Not to get too weird, touchy-feely about it, but I think a lot of us, this is stuff that we got into as teens, and we couldn't get into it. We couldn't afford every single thing with our allowance money. You know, I think specifically Mickey actually touched upon that. And I thought that was a pretty good point that he made, actually, was, did you buy multiple copies or multiple, you know, formats of something when you were a kid? No, because that was stupid. And like, honestly, like, I agree with him, you know? So, you know, I think he made a fair point there. But I think that's a lot of it, is like, now that I'm a grown up, now that I have to deal with like, I don't know, somebody smarter than me would probably say like late capitalist hellscape or something.
Maybe it's because just the world sucks and no one has any like hope for the future. So
No, they deliberately...
They get buried in nostalgia.
Millennials were deliberately stunted by both their parents and marketing. I mean,
like capitalism.
In the early 90s, in the late 80s, early 90s...
Shut the fuck up, Adam.
They started really fucking... aggressively pushing that fucking like, tell your parents, buy me Bone Storm, go to hell.
Right.
That classic
ads,
Simpsons
that's awesome.
we all
Yeah.
know and love.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's like, that created this fucking generation.
Which it, you know, I'd say fair due. That's probably what we're living in right now, you know, just to get by and get the serotonin going or whatever. We're gonna buy up all this stuff that makes us happy. But at a certain point, you don't want to just be like lining the walls of your mausoleum with vinyl. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how it started to feel for me.
It's like when you're an adult, the only things you should be thinking about is everyone in your life that isn't around anymore and all the relationships you fucked up and how no matter what you get, you don't really care about it. These are the things adults think about. Hate yourself, regret every decision you've ever made.
It's true.
Fear death while simultaneously embracing
it. Yeah.
And this whole discourse between the two of them, as petty and, you know, kind of silly as a lot of it was, with all the people reacting to it and people screaming at each other in the comments, it did make me kind of like reflect and want to say something. And I even considered like writing a script and everything, but I really don't have time for that. This would probably be a much better video if I did. But, you know, I got to clean the entire house. I got to walk the dogs 3 or 4 times a day. You know, I'm a working man. I'm a family man.
I'm a family man.
So I don't know. That's pretty much the thing at the end of it. Like, I personally got from this, like, at a certain point, what are we just acquiring stuff endlessly for? And maybe I need to actually sit down and like spend a little bit more time, because all of this is to support artists, right? And like appreciate the art. For me personally, I'm going to spend more time actually appreciating the art and less time just acquiring more and more stuff. I don't know. That's pretty much it. We'll see. I don't even know if I'm going to release this. This seems like a big mess, but I really want to put out something this week. Maybe I'll just do a collection update tomorrow. We'll see. I'll get this down to something a little bit more cohesive in editing, but that's basically all I really wanted to say. Everybody keep doing what they're doing. Catch you all on the flip side.